Every failed relationship with an avoidant, regardless of whether it's a fearful or a dismissive avoidant, fails essentially for one reason and one reason alone: lack of accountability on the part of the avoidant. Even if it's an abrupt blindsiding discard 4 months in, or a slow fade out 10 years into a marriage, it all goes to lack of accountability. Let me explain. In childhood, avoidance developed a wound of shame. Shame is a toxic emotion that often gets confused with guilt. It's not the same thing. Guilt is actually a healthy emotion. That's your brain's way of saying, I did something wrong. But you can resolve guilt. It means you have a conscience, by the way, if you feel guilty. You could make amends if you hurt somebody, or you could stop repeating the behavior you feel guilty about. But whereas guilt is I did something wrong, shame is I am something wrong. I'm defective. I'm not lovable. I'm worthless. Those are shame-based thoughts. Shame is a toxic emotion, and the only healthy resolution to shame is to heal it. But shame is why avoidants struggle to take accountability. Because if they take accountability and say, hey, I did this wrong, or I have this shortcoming, I have this insecurity, I have this issue, in their mind, it is confirmation of their own shame. Look, I did this wrong because I'm defective, because I'm worthless. It's too painful. So they don't want to do it. They don't take accountability. They will do the mental gymnastics to make their behaviors, their insecurities, their fears somebody else's fault or something else's fault. And that lack of accountability will ultimately end the relationship. Early on, if it's a dismissive avoidant and they do an abrupt discard when the honeymoon phase ends, it's because they don't want to be accountability. They don't want to be accountable for their insecurities. They don't want to be accountable for their fears. They don't want to be accountable for their fear of intimacy, fear of closeness, fear of disappointing this person. So they abruptly pull the rug and try to make it seem like it's not their fault. Oh, we're just not compatible. You're just not the right one. Work is too busy. But it's a lack of accountability. If they were truly accountable and said, hey, I have these insecurities and fears, and if they communicated that, obviously things could be worked out. The relationship could work. Same thing when it goes into a longer term relationship or even a marriage. They're not taking accountability for the lack of effort they're putting in. They're not taking accountability for the lack of communication. Things that are building towards resentment on both sides, lack of effort, not having their partner feel seen or heard or considered. The lack of emotional intimacy, not taking accountability for any of it, not taking accountability for their lack of communication, letting it fall apart, but again, doing the mental gymnastics to make it not their fault. So that lack of accountability is ultimately at the core of why virtually every relationship with an avoidant fails, regardless of the excuse that they give their partner, regardless of what they blame it on. It doesn't change the fact that they're coming up with these excuses to escape their inner shame, because that shame is very painful. And their entire attachment style is actually shame-based. It's oriented around avoiding confronting their inner shame, avoiding feeling it, and avoiding having their shame exposed to others. It is all shame-based behavior. Now, the lack of accountability can be very frustrating to be on the receiving end of, because it feels like this person simply doesn't care. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about making things right. They don't care about conflict resolution. Well, in reality, it's that what they ultimately care most about is protecting their fragile ego and protecting themselves and shielding themselves from having to face that inner shame. That shame comes from profound, consistent childhood emotional neglect. Avoidants, they grew up in households where their emotional needs were not met. For dismissive avoidants, it can look like a stable household where you just don't talk about feelings and their feelings are rejected, usually with a parent that's very demanding with high expectations. In the case of a fearful avoidant, there's that emotional neglect aspect, but often combined with chaos, sometimes even abuse or trauma. But ultimately, the child personalizes that neglect. Growing up to feel like it must be them, it must be something wrong with them, that they are defective, not lovable, they are worthless. It is that shame wound. So they create this shield to escape accountability because accountability confirms that shame. It means I am worthless. Now, it doesn't actually mean that. Taking accountability isn't actually as difficult and scary as they fear it to be when you approach it from a healthy perspective, because everybody's human, everybody makes mistakes. And taking accountability can absolutely save and salvage relationships and marriages. But the lack of accountability can destroy it. And avoidance can avoid accountability like it's the plague. But it'll cause failed relationship after failed relationship after failed relationship. And their lack of accountability isn't your fault. That lack of accountability can even lead to a lack of closure, a lack of communication. Well, why are they not communicating with me? Why did they blindside me? Because they don't want to be accountable for hurting you. That lack of accountability really ripples through how they show up, and it really can cause a lot of pain, heartache, anxiety, and grief on the part of their partner or former partner. But recognize it is shame-based from their childhood and has nothing to do with you.